Family is supposed to celebrate your achievements, not forget them. When my parents missed one of the most important days of my life, but then expected me to empty my savings for my brother's wedding the very next day, I knew I had a decision to make, a decision that would change everything. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. Growing up in the Taylor household, I always knew where I stood. My name is Mathelda Taylor, Maddie to most, and I was the forgotten middle child. My older brother Tyler was the golden boy who could do no wrong, and my younger sister Lily was the baby who needed protection. Me? I was the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who was expected to understand when plans changed or promises were broken. Our family home in Westbrook, Connecticut was modest but comfortable. Dad worked as a sales manager at a car dealership, and Mom taught third grade at the local elementary school. We weren't wealthy, but we had enough. At least that's what I thought, until I realized that enough was distributed differently among us kids. When Tyler needed a new laptop for college, my parents dipped into their savings without hesitation. When Lily wanted dance lessons, they found the money somehow. But when I needed help with my textbooks for nursing school, maybe you should pick up more shifts at the diner, Maddie. It builds character. I didn't complain. Instead, I worked harder. While my siblings enjoyed their weekends and holidays, I juggled classes during the day and waited tables at night. During summers, I took on a second job at the hospital gift shop, slowly inching my way through my degree. My graduation from nursing school wasn't just a ceremony to me, it was validation. Proof that all those double shifts, all those nights, studying until my eyes burned, all those times I said no to friends who were going out because I couldn't afford both fun and my future, it had all been worth it. 3 months before graduation, I reminded my parents about the date. May 15th, 10 a.m., at Westbrook Community College Auditorium. It would mean a lot if you could both be there. Mom smiled absently while checking her phone. Of course we'll be there, honey. We wouldn't miss it. Dad nodded from behind his newspaper. Just put it on the calendar and remind us again closer to the date. I did. Every 2 weeks I mentioned it casually. Just a reminder about graduation coming up. I even offered to help them request the day off work. Mom waved away my concern. We've got it handled, Maddie. You focus on finishing strong. The week before graduation, I stopped by their house for Sunday dinner, a tradition I maintained despite my hectic schedule. Over pot roast and mashed potatoes, I brought it up again. So, graduation is this Saturday. The ceremony starts at 10, but we should probably aim to be there by 9:30 for seating. Tyler, who was visiting for the weekend, spoke up. Actually, that reminds me. Hannah and I have set a date for the wedding, Sunday, May 16th. The table erupted in excitement. Hannah was Tyler's fiancée of 6 months, a pediatrician from a wealthy family in Greenwich. They'd been dating for 2 years, and their engagement had been the focus of family conversations since Christmas. That's wonderful, Mom exclaimed. But so soon, that's only a week away. Tyler grinned. Hannah's dad pulled some strings with the Lakeside Country Club. There was a cancellation, and they offered us the spot. It's perfect. The gardens will be in full bloom, and the weather forecast is ideal. But can you organize everything in a week? Dad asked, though I could tell. He was already sold on the idea. Hannah's mom has a wedding planner on speed dial. They're handling everything. We just need to show up and pay our portion. I felt a twinge of unease. What portion is that? Tyler looked uncomfortable for a moment. Well, technically, the traditional arrangement is for the bride's family to pay, but Hannah's dad suggested we contribute something. You know, to show we're invested too. Dad leaned forward. How much are we talking about? 20,000, Tyler said quickly, then added, but it's an investment. Hannah's family connections will open doors for both of us. I nearly choked on my water. $20,000 was more than I made in a year at the diner, even with tips. It was the amount I'd scrimped and saved for a down payment on a small apartment. Dad rubbed his chin thoughtfully. That's a substantial amount on short notice. I know, Tyler sighed. I've been saving, but I only have about $8,000. Hannah's dad said they'd cover the rest if we really can't manage, but it wouldn't look good. Mom reached over to pat his hand. We'll figure it out. This is an important day for you. The conversation shifted to wedding details. The venue, the guest list, the menu. No one mentioned my graduation again. Even when I tried to gently steer the conversation back. So, about Saturday morning, Tyler jumped in with, "Oh, that reminds me, we need to be at the rehearsal dinner Saturday night." By the time I left that evening, a sense of dread had settled in my stomach. But I pushed it aside. They wouldn't forget. They'd promised. Graduation day arrived with perfect May weather, clear blue skies, and a gentle breeze. I got ready in my small apartment, carefully putting on the dress I'd splurged on for the occasion. Navy blue, modest but flattering. Professional, like the nurse I was about to become. I arranged my cap, adjusted my tassel, and took a deep breath. I'd told my parents to meet me outside the auditorium at 9:30. At 9:15, I sent a text. On my way. See you soon. No response, but I figured they were driving. By 9:40, with no sign of them, I called. Straight to voicemail for both. I left messages, trying to keep the worry from my voice. Hey, it's me. Just checking where you are. Ceremony starts in 20 minutes. At 9:50, I was lined up with my classmates, constantly glancing at the doors. Maybe they were just running late and would slip in after the ceremony started. The ceremony began. Names were called, speeches were given. I kept searching the crowd, hoping to see them hurrying to their seats, offering apologetic waves. When they called Mathelda Taylor, I walked across the stage, accepted my diploma, and looked out at the audience. The seat I'd reserved for my family remained empty. After the ceremony, as my classmates took photos with their families, I stood alone. I checked my phone again. No messages, no calls. I tried calling them once more. This time, Mom answered. Hello? She sounded distracted. Noise in the background. Mom, where are you? The graduation's over. There was a pause. Graduation? Oh, Maddie, was that today? The bottom dropped out of my stomach. Yes, today, May 15th, 10 a.m., like I've been reminding you for months. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. We're at the mall with Tyler and Hannah, looking at suits for your father for the wedding tomorrow. I completely forgot to put it on the calendar. I could hear Dad in the background asking who was calling, and Mom's muffled explanation. Then Dad's voice came on the line. Maddie? Look, we're really sorry about missing your graduation. It just slipped our minds with all the wedding preparations. We'll make it up to you, I promise. I stood there in my cap and gown, diploma in hand, surrounded by celebrating families, and felt completely alone. It's fine, I said, though it wasn't. I understand. Great. Dad sounded relieved. Listen, while I've got you on the phone, we're a bit short for Tyler's contribution to the wedding. Your mother and I have put together $12,000, but we're still short. We were wondering if you could help out. I blinked, sure I had misheard. Help out? How? Well, you've always been so good with saving. Tyler mentioned you've got some money put aside for an apartment. Maybe you could lend us some of that? Just temporarily, of course. We'd pay you back. How much? My voice sounded distant to my own ears. $10,000 would cover it nicely. We'd really appreciate it, Maddie. It's for your brother, after all. $10,000, half of my savings. Money I'd earned working double shifts, sacrificing sleep and social life. Money that represented my future, my independence. And they wanted it for a last-minute wedding at a country club for my brother who had never had to work the way I had. I need to think about it, I said finally. Well, don't think too long. We need to transfer the funds by tomorrow morning. Dad's voice had that familiar edge to it, the one that said he expected compliance. I'll call you back, I said, and hung up before he could respond. I stood there for a long moment, watching other graduates with their proud families, feeling the weight of years of being the reliable one, the understanding one, the one who always gave in. I stood in the parking lot of the auditorium for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. My phone buzzed with congratulatory texts from classmates and a few friends who couldn't make it to the ceremony. Not a single message from my sister Lily or anyone else in my family beyond that call from my parents. Hey, you okay? I looked up to see Elena, my study partner from anatomy class. Her family, parents, grandparents, and what looked like at least 3 siblings, waited a respectful distance away. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. Fine, I said automatically. Just thinking. Elena glanced around. Your folks couldn't make it? They forgot. The words burned coming out. Elena's eyes widened. Forgot? Your graduation? How is that even possible? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. My brother's getting married tomorrow. Last-minute country club wedding. They were shopping for suits. I don't even know what to say, Maddie. Oh, it gets better. They want me to give them $10,000 toward the wedding costs. Elena's mouth actually dropped open. Tell me you're joking. I shook my head. And what did you say? That I'd think about it. Elena looked at me for a long moment. Is that really what you're going to do? Think about it? Was it? For as long as I could remember, I'd been the dependable one, the one who made sacrifices, the one who understood when everyone else was too busy to show up for me. I don't know, I admitted. Elena squeezed my arm. Well, if you need someone to celebrate with, we're heading to Applebee's for lunch. My mom always orders too much food anyway. I smiled gratefully but declined. I needed to be alone. Instead of going home, I drove to Foster Park, a small green space near the hospital where I'd sometimes eat lunch during breaks from the gift shop. I sat on a bench, still in my graduation gown, and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through my photo gallery, looking at pictures of family gatherings over the years. Tyler's college graduation, all of us there, beaming. Lily's high school musical, front, row seats. My high school graduation, Mom and Dad were there, but they'd left early because Tyler had a baseball tournament. My 16th birthday, postponed because Lily had the flu. Pattern after pattern of the same story. My phone rang again. Mom, Maddie, have you thought about it? The wedding planner needs to confirm everything by tonight. No hello, no congratulations. Not even another apology for missing my graduation. I'm still thinking, I said. I don't understand what there is to think about, Mom said, her voice taking on that wounded tone she used when she didn't get her way. This is your brother's wedding. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event. So was my graduation, I said quietly. There was a pause. That's different, Maddie. Everyone graduates from something. Not everyone in our family graduated from nursing school after working 60-hour weeks for 4 years. I don't understand why you're being difficult about this. We've always supported you. I almost laughed. How exactly? When? We raised you, fed you, clothed you. That's the bare minimum of parenting, Mom. I'm talking about support, like showing up when you say you will. Like not asking me to empty my savings account for Tyler's last-minute wedding when you couldn't even remember to come to my graduation. That's not fair. We've been very busy, and I haven't? I've been working 2 jobs while going to school full-time. I haven't had a vacation in 4 years. I can't remember the last time I went out with friends just for fun. Well, that was your choice, Mom said dismissively, and suddenly everything was crystal clear. "You're right," I said. "It was my choice. And this is my choice too." "No." "No." "What?" "No, I will not give you $10,000 for Tyler's wedding. That money is for my future." There was a shocked silence on the other end. Never in my life had I refused a direct request from my parents. Never had I put myself first. "I can't believe you're being so selfish," Mom finally said. "Tyler is your brother." "Yes, he is. And I love him. But this isn't about Tyler. This is about the fact that you and Dad have always had different rules for him than for me. Different expectations, different support. And I've accepted that for years because I thought that's just how families worked. But today, when you forgot one of the most important days of my life and then called to ask for my money without even a proper apology, that's not normal. That's not okay. "Your father will be very disappointed," Mom said, as if that was the ultimate threat. "I'm disappointed too," I replied. "I have been for a long time. I just didn't let myself admit it." I could hear Dad's voice in the background, asking what was going on. Mom's muffled explanation. Then Dad came on the line. "Matilda." "And Taylor?" he said. And I knew I was in trouble. He only used my full name when he was angry. "What is this nonsense your mother tells me? You're refusing to help your brother?" "I'm refusing to give away half my savings, Dad. There's a difference. This is family, Maddie. Family helps each other. When was the last time you helped me? Dad? Really helped me when it cost you something? When it was inconvenient?" "That's not fair. You keep saying that. But what's really not fair is expecting me to constantly sacrifice for everyone else when no one does the same for me. We've given you everything." "No, you haven't. And that's okay. I don't need everything, but I do need basic respect. I need to be valued as much as Tyler and Lily. And today made it very clear that I'm not." Dad's voice hardened. "If you don't help with this wedding, don't bother coming tomorrow. In fact, don't bother coming home at all until you've fixed your attitude." The old Maddie would have caved instantly at this threat. The old Maddie would have apologized, backtracked, agreed to anything to keep the peace. But something had shifted when I walked across that stage alone today. Something had changed when I'd looked out at the empty seats where my family should have been. "If that's how you feel, then I won't," I said evenly. "Goodbye, Dad." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from a strange sense of release. My phone immediately began ringing again. I silenced it and watched as text messages started flooding in. From Mom, from Dad, even from Tyler, who'd obviously been informed of my rebellion. "What are you doing?" his message read. "This is my wedding we're talking about." I turned my phone off completely and sat in the quiet of the park. A part of me felt guilty, the part that had been conditioned to put everyone else first. But a stronger part felt like I could finally breathe after years of suffocation. I drove back to my apartment, changed out of my graduation clothes, and sat at my small kitchen table with a cup of tea. For the first time in my adult life, I allowed myself to consider what I actually wanted, without factoring in my family's needs and expectations. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating. I turned my phone back on, ignoring the missed calls and messages from my family, and called the one person I knew would understand. "Elena, is that lunch offer still open?" 2 hours later, I was squeezed around a table at Applebee's with Elena's boisterous family. Her mother had indeed ordered too much food, and her father kept proposing toasts to the future lifesaver. Elena's younger brothers peppered me with questions about the grossest things I'd seen during my clinical rotations, while her grandmother slipped me extra mozzarella sticks because I looked too skinny. They weren't my family, but they made me feel more welcome, more valued than I had in my own home for years. As I drove home that evening, I made a decision. I would not be attending Tyler's wedding tomorrow. Not because I didn't love my brother, but because for once, I needed to stand my ground. For once, I needed my family to understand that their actions, or lack thereof, had consequences. When I got home, there was a new message from Tyler. Mom and Dad told me what happened. I get that you're upset about them missing your graduation. But do you really need to ruin my wedding over it? I started to type an angry response, then deleted it. Instead, I wrote, "Congratulations on your wedding, Tyler. I hope it's everything you want it to be. I won't be attending. This isn't about ruining your day. It's about finally respecting myself enough to set boundaries. I'll always be your sister, but right now, I need some distance from all of you." I sent the message, then blocked all their numbers. Not forever. I wasn't ready to cut ties completely. But for now. I needed space to process my feelings without their voices drowning out my own. That night, I slept better than I had in years. In the morning, instead of getting ready for Tyler's wedding, I called a realtor and scheduled a viewing for a small condo I'd had my eye on for months. It was time to start building my life on my own terms. Time to stop waiting for my family to value me as I deserved and to start valuing myself. The Sunday of Tyler's wedding came and went. I spent it touring 3 different condos with a cheerful realtor named Janet, who didn't ask why a newly graduated nurse was house hunting on a weekend rather than celebrating with family. "This one has great bones," Janet said as we walked through a 1-bedroom unit in an older building about 10 minutes from the hospital. "The kitchen needs updating, but the price reflects that." I ran my hand along the chipped countertop. The place wasn't perfect, far from it. But it was within my budget, especially if I kept my full savings intact. More importantly, it would be mine. "I'd like to make an offer," I told her. Janet looked surprised. "Don't you want to think about it? Maybe bring your parents by for a second opinion?" "No," I said firmly. "This is my decision." By Monday morning, my offer had been accepted. By Monday afternoon, I was scheduled to start my new job at Westbrook General the following week. Life was moving forward at a dizzying pace, but for the first time in ages, I felt like I was in control. I kept my family's numbers blocked until Wednesday. When I finally unblocked them, dozens of messages flooded in. Most were from the day of the wedding, angry demands to know where I was, accusations of sabotage, threats about consequences. But the most recent ones had shifted in tone. From Mom, "Maddie, please call us. We're worried about you." From Dad, "Your mother is beside herself. At least let us know you're safe." From Lily, "Whatever they did, they're really sorry, Maddie. Please come home." Nothing from Tyler, which wasn't surprising. He and Hannah were probably on their honeymoon, blissfully unaware of the family drama they'd left behind. I drafted and deleted a dozen responses before finally sending a simple message to the family group chat. "I'm fine. Starting my new job next week. Need more time before we talk." Mom called immediately. I let it go to voicemail. "Mathelda, sweetheart." Her message began, her voice shaky with emotion. "We've been so worried. I know you're upset about the graduation, and we're truly sorry. We got so caught up in the wedding preparations that But that's no excuse. We messed up. Please come home for dinner tonight so we can talk properly." The old Maddie would have run home immediately, eager to smooth things over, to be the bigger person. But the new Maddie, the one who had walked across that graduation stage alone and survived, needed more than a tearful apology over pot roast. I texted back, "Can't tonight, getting ready for work and the move." The response was instantaneous. "Move? What move?" I hadn't planned to tell them about the condo this way, but there was no avoiding it now. "Bought a place near the hospital, closing in 3 weeks." There was a long pause before Mom replied, "You bought a place? Without telling us? Without asking for our help or advice?" I almost laughed. Their help? Their advice? Where had that been? When I was working double shifts to pay for nursing school? Didn't need help. Got approved for a mortgage with my new nurse's salary, and I had the down payment saved. Another pause, longer this time. The same savings you refused to share for your brother's wedding. And there it was, the real issue. Not that I'd made a major life decision without consulting them, but that I'd spent their money on myself instead of giving it to Tyler. Yes, I replied simply. My savings, my decision. Dad called next. Against my better judgment, I answered. Maddie, he began, his voice that careful mix of stern and conciliatory that he used when he wanted to appear reasonable while still getting his way. Your mother's very upset. I gathered that. You could have at least discussed this condo with us before, jumping into such a big commitment. Real estate is complicated. Dad, I've been researching this for over a year. I've read books, taken first-time homebuyer classes, built spreadsheets analyzing different neighborhoods and price points. I'm not jumping into anything. He seemed momentarily taken aback by this information. Well, still, it's a lot of money. My money, I reminded him. From my work. That's not the point. That's exactly the point. For 4 years, I've been working and saving while putting myself through school. No help, no safety net. Just me. And when I finally achieved something significant, you and Mom couldn't even be bothered to show up. But you still expected access to my money for Tyler. Dad was quiet for a moment. We've apologized for missing your graduation. What more do you want from us? The question caught me off guard. What did I want? An acknowledgement of the deeper pattern? A recognition that our family dynamic had been fundamentally unbalanced for years? A promise to do better? I want you to understand why I'm hurt, I said finally. Not just about the graduation, but about years of feeling like an afterthought in this family. And I want you to respect my decisions without making me feel guilty for putting myself first for once. Dad sighed heavily. You're being dramatic, Maddie. Every family has its issues, but we've always loved you all equally. Loving equally isn't the same as treating equally, Dad. And if you can't see the difference, then we have nothing more to talk about right now. I ended the call before he could respond. My hands were trembling, but my resolve was firm. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. I started my job in the medical surgical unit at Westbrook General, began packing up my apartment, and dealt with the endless paperwork involved in buying a condo. My family remained at a distance, occasional text messages checking in, but no more attempts to discuss what had happened. Then, 2 days before my closing date, I received a text from Tyler. Back from honeymoon. Heard you're buying a place. Need any help moving? I stared at the message, unsure how to respond. Tyler and I had always had a complicated relationship. As kids, we'd been close, but as our parents' favoritism became more pronounced, a wedge had formed between us. It wasn't entirely his fault. He hadn't asked to be the golden child, but he'd certainly never tried to balance the scales either. After some thought, I replied, Thanks for the offer. Moving this weekend if you're free. His response came quickly. I'll be there. Send the address. Saturday morning, I was hauling boxes down to my car when a sleek black SUV pulled up beside me. Tyler stepped out, looking tanned from his honeymoon and slightly uncertain. Hey, he said, hands shoved in his pockets. Hey, I replied. Thanks for coming, he nodded, glancing around at the boxes stacked on the sidewalk. Is this everything? Most of it. The furniture's already at the new place. I hired movers for the heavy stuff. Smart. He picked up a box labeled kitchen. Where's this going? I gave him the address and we worked in silence, loading up both our vehicles. Once we'd filled them, we drove to the condo, Tyler following behind my beat-up Honda. The condo looked different with my furniture in it, more like home, but still strange and new. Tyler carried in the last box and looked around the small living room with its outdated carpet and my second-hand couch. It's nice, he said, though I could tell he was comparing it to his and Hannah's luxury apartment downtown. It needs work, I admitted. But it's mine. Tyler nodded, then cleared his throat. Look, Maddie, about the wedding. We don't need to talk about it. I think we do. He sat on the arm of the couch. Mom and Dad told me what happened, their version anyway. That you refused to help with the costs and then ghosted everyone on the actual day. I crossed my arms. Is that all they told you? They mentioned something about missing your graduation. He at least had the grace to look embarrassed. I'm sorry about that, by the way. I should have reminded them. It wasn't your responsibility to remind them, I said. But yes, they forgot, and then called me right after to ask for $10,000 for your wedding. Tyler winced. I didn't know they were going to ask you for that much, or at all, really. Dad just said he'd handle the family contribution. Of course he did. I started unpacking a box of books, needing something to do with my hands. It doesn't matter now anyway. It obviously does matter, Maddie. You're buying a place and moving out without telling anyone. You barely respond to family texts. You missed my wedding. I placed a medical reference book on the shelf with more force than necessary. I missed your wedding because Dad told me not to come unless I gave you the money. And I didn't tell anyone about the condo because I knew exactly how everyone would react, like I'd done something wrong by making a decision without committee approval. Tyler was quiet for a moment. Were they always like this with you? So, controlling? The question surprised me. You never noticed? He shrugged uncomfortably. I guess I never thought about it. Things always seem to work out. For you, maybe. I didn't say it with bitterness, just as a statement of fact. Do you know how I paid for nursing school? 2 jobs, sometimes 3 during breaks. Scholarships, loans. Mom and Dad helped you with law school, right? Tyler looked down at his hands. They covered tuition and gave me an allowance for living expenses. And they helped Lily with her gap year in Europe? He nodded slowly. I never really put it together like that. It's easy not to notice privilege when you're the one who has it. I turned back to my books. Look, I don't blame you, Tyler. It's not your fault our parents picked favorites. But I need to create some distance right now, for my own sanity. Tyler stood up. I get it. Or I'm trying to, anyway. He hesitated, then added, For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Nursing school, this place, standing up for yourself. It's really impressive, Maddie. For the first time in weeks, I felt the knot in my chest loosen just a fraction. Thanks. That actually means a lot. Hannah and I would love to have you over for dinner sometime. When you're ready, no parents, no drama, just us. I nodded. I'd like that, eventually. After Tyler left, I sat on my couch in my very own living room and looked around at the boxes waiting to be unpacked. My phone buzzed with a text from him. Left something for you by the door. Housewarming gift. I opened the front door to find a small gift bag. Inside was a framed photo of me at 18, standing in front of the diner in my first day uniform, looking nervous but determined. I'd forgotten that Tyler had taken that picture on his way to football practice. Beneath it was a card, to new beginnings and second chances. Love, Tyler. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope for healing after all. Not overnight, not without honest conversations and real change, but something had shifted. A door had opened, even as I'd closed another behind me. 3 months flew by. Summer turned to fall, and I settled into both my new home and my job at Westbrook General. The work was challenging, but fulfilling, exactly what I'd spent 4 grueling years preparing for. My small team of fellow nurses became a sort of surrogate family, especially Vivian, a no-nonsense veteran nurse who took new graduates under her wing with tough love and unexpected baking skills. Homemade cinnamon rolls, she announced one morning, placing a container in the break room. Taylor, you look like you need 2. I'd been on my feet for 10 hours straight, dealing with a particularly difficult patient. I need the whole tray, I said, reaching gratefully for the offered treat. Vivian sat across from me, her short gray hair framing a face that had seen it all in 30 years of nursing. How's that condo coming along? Fixed that leaky faucet? Yet? YouTube tutorials are my new best friend, I told her. Fixed the faucet, painted the bedroom, and installed floating shelves all by myself. She nodded approvingly. Self-sufficiency. I like it. She paused, studying my face. You doing okay otherwise? You've been quiet this week? I hadn't realized it was noticeable. It's my parents' anniversary on Saturday, 30 years. They're having a big party. And you're going? It wasn't really a question. I shrugged. I RSVP'd. Yes. Tyler says they've been telling everyone how proud they are of me. Their daughter, the nurse. Like the last few months never happened. Convenient amnesia, Vivian remarked. Are you ready to play along? That was the question I'd been asking myself for days. The distance I'd created had been healing in many ways. I'd had dinner with Tyler and Hannah twice. Awkward at first, but gradually more comfortable. Lily had visited my condo, marveling at my independence and confessing that she envied my courage. My parents, though, remained at arm's length. Weekly phone calls, superficial conversations, careful avoidance of any topics that might lead back to what had happened. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to skip it, but another part thinks that's petty. It's not petty to protect yourself, Vivian said, her voice gentle but firm. But sometimes the strongest thing is showing up on your own terms. My own terms. I turned the phrase over in my mind as I drove home that evening. What would attending this anniversary party on my own terms look like? Saturday arrived with perfect autumn weather, crisp air, golden sunlight, trees beginning to blush with color. I stood in front of my closet, considering my options. Finally, I chose a deep emerald dress I'd splurged on to celebrate closing. On the condo. It made me feel confident, successful. Like the woman I was becoming rather than the girl who had always bent to please others. The party was being held at Riverside Gardens, a picturesque venue overlooking the Connecticut River. I arrived exactly on time, not early to help set up as I would have in the past, not late to make a point. Just on time, as any ordinary guest would be. Tyler spotted me first, raising his glass in greeting from across the room. Hannah beside him, resplendent in designer crimson. Lily rushed over, hugging me tightly. You came. And you look amazing, she said, stepping back to admire my dress. Mom's been asking if anyone heard. From you. I told her I was coming, I said, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing server. Where are they? Lily gestured toward the center of the room where our parents stood, accepting congratulations from a circle of friends. Mom in pale blue, silk. Dad looking uncomfortable but proud in a suit that was definitely new. Should I go say hello now, or... Mathelda? Mom's voice carried across the room as she spotted me. She excused herself from her conversation and made her way over, arms outstretched. You're here! I accepted her embrace, brief but sincere. Happy anniversary, Mom. Thank you, sweetheart. You look lovely. Her eyes took in my dress, my carefully styled hair, the subtle makeup I'd applied with more skill than usual. Is that new? Few months old, I replied. I bought it to celebrate the condo. A flicker of something, hurt, regret, crossed her face, but she quickly recovered. It suits you beautifully. Come say hello to your father. He's been asking when you'd arrive. I followed her through the crowd, exchanging pleasantries with family friends and distant relatives who exclaimed over how grown up I looked, how they'd heard I was a nurse now, how proud my parents must be. Dad's face lit up when he saw me, a genuine reaction that surprised me. There she is, he said, pulling me into a hug. Our healthcare professional? Happy anniversary, Dad, I said, returning the hug automatically. 30 years, he said, shaking his head in wonder. Time flies, Maddie. Don't waste a minute of it on petty disagreements. And just like that, the momentary warmth I'd felt cooled. Not an acknowledgement of wrong, not a true apology, just a dismissal of my feelings as petty. I'll try to remember that, I said neutrally, stepping back. I'm going to get some food. The buffet was elaborate, another expense my parents had apparently found money for. I filled a plate, then found a quiet table near the windows overlooking the river. As I ate, I watched my family circulate through the room. Mom, the gracious hostess, Dad, the proud husband, Tyler and Hannah, the golden couple, Lily, the charming baby of the family, all playing their assigned roles to perfection. What was my role now? The dutiful daughter who'd finally come home? The rebel who'd broken ranks? The guilt-inducing reminder of their parental failings? Mind if I join you? My father's oldest friend, Uncle Jack. Not a real uncle, but he'd been around since before I was born, stood beside the table with a plate and a kind smile. Please, I gestured to the empty chair. Jack settled his lanky frame into the seat with a contented sigh. These things wear me out. Too much small talk. He studied me over his glasses. You've been making changes, I hear. I nodded. New job. New place. Good for you. He took a bite of salmon, chewed thoughtfully. Your dad mentioned there was some tension in the family recently. I raised an eyebrow. Did he mention why? Jack laughed softly. In 40 years of friendship, I've learned your father has a selective memory when it comes to his own missteps. But I gather it had something to do with your graduation and Tyler's wedding? Something like that, I agreed, not wanting to unfold the whole story. Jack set down his fork. You know, Maddie, I've watched you grow up. Always the responsible one. Always making sure everyone else was taken care of. He looked at me with unexpected seriousness. It's about time you put yourself first. I blinked, surprised by the validation from such an unexpected source. Dad doesn't see it that way. Your dad grew up in a different time, with different expectations. Doesn't make him right. Jack glanced across the room to where my father was laughing with college friends. He loves you, though. They both do. They just don't always know how to show it equally. Love without respect isn't enough, I said quietly. Jack nodded slowly. No, it isn't. But respect can be learned, if both sides are willing. He patted my hand. Don't give up on them yet. They're slow learners, but they're not hopeless. The raw. Evening continued with speeches, toasts, and embarrassing stories about my parents' early years together. I participated politely, raising my glass at appropriate moments, laughing at the right times. When the dancing started, I slipped out onto the terrace for some air. The river was a dark ribbon below, reflecting the strings of lights from the venue. The October evening had turned chilly, but I welcomed the crispness against my skin. Thought I might find you out here. My mother's voice. She came to stand beside me at the railing, wrapping her cashmere shawl more tightly around her shoulders. You always did prefer quiet corners at parties. I smiled faintly. Some things don't change. And some things do. She gazed out at the river. You've changed, Maddie. There's a certainty about you now, a strength that wasn't there before. It was always there, I corrected gently. I just never used it with you and Dad before. Mom was quiet for a long moment. I've been thinking a lot about what you said that day, about treating you all equally. She turned to face me. We didn't. You're right about that. We expected more from you because you seemed so capable, so independent. We didn't think you needed us the way Tyler and Lily did. It was the most honest acknowledgement she'd ever offered. I did need you, Mom. Maybe not in the same ways, but I needed you. I know that now. Her voice caught. Missing your graduation. I have no excuse. We were so wrapped up in Tyler's wedding that it's unforgivable. I don't need you to say it's unforgivable, I said. I just need you to understand why it hurt so much. It wasn't just about that day. It was about a lifetime of feeling. Less important. Mom reached for my hand, her familiar fingers cool against mine. We're trying to do better, your father and I. We're slow and stubborn and set in our ways, but we're trying. For the first time in months, I felt something loosen in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but the possibility of it. That's all. I can ask. Will you come to Sunday dinner tomorrow? Your dad's making his famous pot roast. I hesitated. Sunday dinner had always been sacred in our family, a tradition I'd maintained even during my busiest nursing school days. But I'd stopped attending after everything that happened. I have an early shift on Monday, I said, but I could come for a little while. The smile that broke across my mother's face was worth the compromise. We'd love that. She squeezed and maybe you could give us a proper tour of your condo sometime. We should see where our daughter lives. Another step, a small one but meaningful. I'd like that, I said, and was surprised to find I meant it. As we stood there in companionable silence, watching the river flow beneath us, I realized something important. Drawing boundaries wasn't about cutting people off. It was about creating healthier connections. My parents might never be perfect, might never fully understand my perspective, but perhaps we could build something new on the foundation. Of hard truths and mutual respect. It wouldn't happen overnight. But standing there on that anniversary night, I felt something I hadn't expected. Hope. Sunday dinner was predictably awkward at first. Dad hovered over the pot roast with uncharacteristic nervousness, while Mom kept up a stream of inconsequential chatter about neighbors and church events. Lily, bless her, filled the silences with stories from her community college classes. The empty chair where Tyler would normally sit felt conspicuous. He and Hannah were having dinner with her parents. Instead, the Petersons' son got into medical school, Mom mentioned as she passed me the mashed potatoes. It reminded me of how proud we are of you, Maddie. A registered nurse, and at Westbrook General. That's quite an achievement. I accepted the compliment, with a nod, noting how she emphasized proud a bit too forcefully. How is the job going? Dad asked, making a visible effort to engage. Are they treating you well? It's challenging but good, I replied, surprised by his interest. I'm on the medical surgical floor, so we see a bit of everything. My supervisor says I might be ready to train as a charge nurse by next year. Charge nurse? Lily asked. Is that like a promotion? Sort of. It means I'd coordinate patient care for the entire unit during my shift. More responsibility, slightly better pay. Dad nodded approvingly. That's excellent, Maddie. Fast-tracking your career. The conversation flowed more naturally after that. I found myself relaxing as we discussed safe topics. My father's upcoming retirement plans, Lily's transfer application to the state university, the unseasonably warm fall weather. No mention of my absence these past months, no reference to Tyler's wedding or my missed graduation. It was as if we'd all agreed to pretend those events belonged to another family entirely. As I helped Mom clear the table after dessert, she touched my arm lightly. This was nice, wasn't it? Having you back at the table. I stacked plates carefully, choosing my words. It was good to be here. Different, but good. Different how? She asked, loading the dishwasher with practiced efficiency. Leaned against the counter, considering. More like visiting than coming home, I guess. Which isn't bad. Just different. Mom's hands stilled briefly. I suppose that makes sense. You have your own home now. She closed the dishwasher and turned to face me. Your father and I were hoping you might show us that home sometime. Maybe next weekend? It was a reasonable request, an olive branch of sorts. Still, I hesitated. My condo had become my sanctuary, the one place where everything was exactly as I wanted it, where no one questioned my choices or made me feel inadequate. "I'm working next Saturday," I said, which was true. "But Sunday afternoon would work." Mom's face brightened. "Sunday it is. Should we bring anything?" "Just yourselves," I replied, surprised by my own willingness to open my private space to them. "It's nothing fancy, remember." "It's yours," Mom said simply. "That makes it special." The week passed in a blur of 12-hour shifts, patient care, plans, and late-night studying for my advanced cardiac life support certification. By Sunday, I was exhausted, but oddly nervous about my parents' visit. I spent Saturday evening cleaning my already tidy condo and arranging fresh flowers in the living room, a small luxury I occasionally allowed myself. They arrived precisely at 2 o'clock, Dad bearing a potted peace lily, more lasting than cut flowers, Mom carrying a homemade apple pie. Their faces as they entered my small foyer betrayed nothing, but I watched closely as they took in the honey-colored hardwood floors I'd painstakingly refinished myself, the pale gray walls adorned with simple artwork, the cozy but modest furniture. "Well," Dad said finally, "this is quite nice, Maddie." Mom wandered into the living room, touching the spines of books on my shelves, examining the photographs I'd framed, mostly of landscapes I'd visited, a few with nursing school friends, one of Lily, and me at the beach last summer. "It suits you," she said. "Clean lines, nothing frivolous but still warm." I relaxed fractionally. "Coffee? Or I have that herbal tea you like, Mom." We settled in the living room with our drinks, the conversation meandering from my neighborhood to Dad's garden plans for next spring. I gave them the brief tour. Living room, kitchen with its freshly painted cabinets, spare bedroom that doubled as my study space, master bedroom with the ensuite bathroom I'd splurged on, updating with a rainfall showerhead. "You did all this?" "Yourself?" Dad asked, inspecting the floating shelves I'd installed in the study. "Most of it. Tyler helped move furniture, and I hired professionals for the electrical work in the bathroom. Everything else was YouTube tutorials and trial and error." Dad ran his hand along the edge of a shelf. "Impressive. I didn't realize you were so handy." "Neither." "Did I?" I admitted. "Turns out I enjoy figuring things out." Something shifted in his expression. Respect, perhaps, or recognition of a trait we shared. My father had always been the family fix-it person, spending weekends tinkering with appliances and tackling home improvement projects. "If you ever need help with anything," he offered, "I'm just a phone call away." "Thanks, Dad. I might take you up on that when I tackle the kitchen backsplash." We returned to the living room where Mom was examining the view from my small balcony. "Your building has a pool, right? And a gym." I nodded. "The HOA fees cover both. It's not fancy, but it's convenient." "You've thought of everything," she said. And I couldn't quite read her tone. Pride? Wistfulness? "You're really building a life here." That's the idea. We sat down to apple pie and coffee, the conversation shifting to family news. Aunt Susan's hip replacement, Cousin Mark's new baby, Uncle Peter's retirement, normal, mundane updates that had once been the background noise of my life. "Tyler and Hannah are thinking of buying a house," Mom mentioned, carefully casual. "In Greenwich near her parents." "That makes sense," I replied, equally neutral. "Her job is there and Tyler can commute to his firm. It would put them an hour away from us," Dad said, a note of discontent in his voice. I raised an eyebrow. "I'm 20 minutes away and this is the first time you've visited." The comment slipped out before I could censor it. Mom's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips and Dad's shoulders stiffened. "We wanted to give you space," Mom said finally. After everything, the unspoken events hung in the air between us. For months, we'd navigated around them, maintaining a fragile peace by simply pretending they hadn't happened. But relationships built on avoidance are like houses with faulty foundations. Eventually, something gives. "I appreciate that," I said, But at some point, we need to actually talk about what happened, not just dance around it. Dad set his coffee cup down with deliberate care. I thought we were moving past all that, Maddie. Moving past it isn't the same as addressing it, I said. You missed my graduation, then asked for half my savings for Tyler's wedding, then told me not to come home until I fixed my attitude. Those things happened. Pretending they didn't won't make our relationship healthier. Mom's eyes filled with tears. We've apologized for missing your graduation. What more do you want from us? It was the same question Dad had asked months ago, and I still didn't have a perfect answer. But I was closer. I want acknowledgement that this wasn't a one-time mistake. It was part of a pattern that's existed my whole life. Tyler and Lily received support, attention, and resources that I didn't. That's not about being jealous. It's about recognizing an imbalance that hurt me. Dad's jaw tightened. We did the best we could with what we had, Mathelda. Maybe the distribution wasn't always equal, but that's how families work. Different. Children have different needs at different times. And my needs were never the priority, I said quietly. Ever. I was always expected to understand, to wait my turn, to make do. Do you know what it feels like to work 2 jobs while going to school full-time, knowing your brother got a free ride? To skip meals sometimes because textbooks cost more than you budgeted for, while Lily got to spend a year finding herself in Europe on your dime? Mom's tears spilled over. We didn't know. You didn't ask, I corrected. You assumed I was fine, because I never complained, because I was the responsible one, the mature one. And look at you now. Dad gestured around the condo. You're doing better than either of your siblings. You're independent, successful. You've got grit that they don't have. That's not the point, I sighed, fighting frustration. I'm not saying I regret becoming self-sufficient. I'm saying I deserved the same support they got, regardless of the outcome. And when you forgot my graduation, the one thing I asked you to show up for after years of handling everything else myself, it confirmed what I'd always suspected, that my achievements matter less to you than theirs. The room fell silent. Outside, clouds had gathered, casting shadows across my neat living room. Dad stared down at his hands, his expression unreadable. Mom wiped her eyes with a tissue, shoulders slumped. We failed you, she said finally, her voice small. Not just with the graduation. Before that, all along. The simple admission, free of excuses or deflection, caught me off guard. I'd been bracing for defensiveness, for the familiar redirection of blame. We didn't see it, Dad added, looking up. I didn't see it. You seemed so capable, so self-contained. I thought you didn't need us the way the others did. He shook his head. I was wrong, and I'm sorry, Maddie. Truly sorry. The knot in my chest, the one I'd carried for so long I'd almost forgotten it was there, began to loosen, not dissolving completely, but softening around the edges. What happened with the wedding? Mom began hesitantly. Asking for your savings that way, it was thoughtless and unfair. We were panicking about the money, and we took advantage of your responsibility. We never should have put that on you. No, I agreed. You shouldn't have. And then to tell you not to come if you wouldn't pay, Dad grimaced. That was my temper talking. I've always been proud, too proud. But I was wrong, and I paid for it by not having my daughter at my son's wedding. The simple validation felt like cool water on a burn, not enough to heal it completely, but enough to ease the worst of the pain. I'm not looking for groveling, I said, just understanding. Recognition that my feelings are valid, that this pattern was real, and that we all contributed to it in some way. We understand, Mom said. At least we're trying to. And we want to do better if you'll let us. I nodded slowly. I want that too. But it can't just go back to the way it was. I need our relationship to be different moving forward. Different how? Dad asked, but without defensiveness, genuinely asking. I considered the question carefully. I need you to respect my boundaries and my independence, to treat me as an adult who makes her own choices, not as the perpetual middle child who needs guidance. And I need equality, not just in words, but in actions. That seems fair, Dad said after a moment. It might take practice on our part, but we can try. That's all I'm asking for, I said. Trying, awareness, and maybe a little more balance in how you distribute your attention and resources among your children. Mom reached for my hand. We're so proud of you, Maddie. Not just for your nursing degree, or this lovely home you've created, for your strength, for having the courage to hold us accountable when we failed you. The words sank in, healing something I hadn't realized was still wounded. All my life I'd craved their recognition, their acknowledgement that my path, though different from my siblings, was equally valuable. Thank you, I said simply. We finished our pie in a different kind of silence, not tense or awkward, but thoughtful, contemplative. When they left an hour later, the goodbye hugs felt more genuine than they had in years. As I closed the door behind them, my phone buzzed with a text from Lily. How did it go with Mom and Dad? They were nervous about seeing your place. I smiled, typing back. Better than expected. Real conversation for once. Miracle, she responded. BTW, I need your nursing brain. Can I call you tomorrow about this weird elective I'm considering? For next semester? Medical ethics or something? Anytime, I replied, feeling an unexpected warmth at her request for my expertise. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Tyler. Hannah and I are house hunting next weekend. Any chance my handy sister could come give her expert opinion on fixer-upper potential? I'll bribe you with a fancy lunch. 2 requests for my involvement in one evening. Small shifts, perhaps, but meaningful ones. Later that night, as I prepared for my early Monday shift, I found myself reflecting on the winding path that had led me here. 6 months ago, standing alone at my graduation, I couldn't have imagined the changes that would unfold. The boundaries drawn, the truths spoken, the new foundation being laid brick by careful brick. The hurt wasn't gone entirely. Old patterns had a way of resurfacing when least expected. But something fundamental had shifted, both within me and within my family dynamic. I had claimed my space, my voice, my worth. And remarkably, instead of losing my family in the process, I might actually be on the path to finding a healthier relationship with them. My phone buzzed one more time before I fell asleep. A text from Mom. Thank you for today, for your honesty, and for giving us a chance to do better. Your father and I are so grateful to have you as our daughter. I read it twice, letting the simple words sink in. Not perfect healing, not complete resolution, but a beginning. And sometimes, beginnings were the most important part of any story. With that thought, I drifted to sleep in my own home, on my own terms, with the knowledge that I had finally claimed not just independence, but something even more valuable, self-worth that no one else could give or take away. The hospital cafeteria buzzed with the usual mid-afternoon energy, nurses grabbing quick meals between shifts, doctors huddled over charts, visitors seeking respite from tense waiting rooms. I balanced my tray of barely passable lasagna and salad, scanning for Vivian among the crowded tables. Over here. She waved from a corner table, her surgical scrubs splattered with something I hoped was just coffee. Saved you a seat. I slid into the chair across from her, grateful for the brief reprieve. Thanks. 12 hours into a 16-hour shift, and I'm running on fumes. 16? I thought you were off at 7. Covering for Monica. Her daughter has strep. I took a bite of the lasagna and immediately regretted it. Why do I keep forgetting how bad the food is here? Desperation and exhaustion, Vivian said wisely, pushing a homemade brownie toward me. Here, I made these for the unit, but you look like you need emergency chocolate. I accepted it gratefully. You're a lifesaver, literally sometimes, but definitely right now. She grinned. So, ready for the big weekend? Your brother's moving back to Westbrook, right? I nodded, unable to speak through a mouthful of brownie. After nearly a year in Greenwich, Tyler and Hannah had made the surprising decision to return to our hometown. Hannah had been offered a position at Westbrook Children's Hospital, a step up from her previous role, and Tyler had negotiated a partial remote work arrangement with his law firm. Saturday, I confirmed after swallowing. I'm helping them unpack. Their new place is only about 10 minutes from mine. Family getting closer in more ways than one, Vivian observed. You okay? With that, it was a fair question. The past year had been a careful rebuilding process with my family. 2 steps forward, 1 step back at times, but progress nonetheless. My parents had made visible efforts to respect my boundaries while still maintaining connection. Our Sunday. Dinners had become a monthly rather than weekly event, supplemented by occasional lunches, phone calls, and even a few joint projects. Dad and I had installed backsplash tile in my kitchen together, a weekend of bonding over grout and shared curses at crooked old walls. I am surprisingly, I replied. Tyler and I have actually become closer this past year. Hannah's pregnancy announcement kind of accelerated their timeline for moving back. Ah, the impending grandchild factor, Vivian said knowingly. Nothing. Reshuffles family dynamics quite like a baby. Tell me about it. Mom's already turned the spare bedroom at their house into a nursery, and Dad's building a rocking chair from scratch. And how do you feel about becoming Aunt Maddie? I smiled, genuinely excited. Good, actually. Hannah and I have gotten closer too. She's asked me to be her doula, since I have the medical background. Vivian raised an eyebrow. That's a big ask. You sure you're up for witnessing your sister-in-law in that particular state? She doesn't have sisters, and her mom lives in Arizona now. Besides, I shrugged, we nurses have seen worse. My pager beeped. Room 412 needed assistance. I sighed, shoveling in one last bite of brownie before standing. Duty calls. Thanks for the sugar infusion. Anytime, Taylor. Good luck with moving day. Try not to throw your back out before your charge nurse interview next week. I froze halfway out of my chair. How did you know about that? I haven't told anyone except Harrison in HR, who happens to be my neighbor. Vivian winked. Don't worry, your secret's safe with me. But for what it's worth, you're absolutely ready. The interview, in all the family excitement about Tyler and Hannah's move, I'd almost managed to forget my own potentially life-changing event. After 18 months at Westbrook General, I'd been encouraged to apply for the charge nurse position on our unit. The role would mean more responsibility, better pay, and a step up the career ladder I'd mapped out for myself. My shift ended at 11 that night, and I dragged myself home, shower-numb and bone-tired in that particular way only healthcare workers truly understand. My condo welcomed me with familiar comfort, the soft glow of the lamp I'd left on, the gentle hum of the refrigerator, the faint scent of the lavender candle I'd burned that morning. Home. My home. As I prepared for bed, my phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. You up? Sorry if not. Having second thoughts about this move. Help. I hit call instead of texting back. He answered on the first ring. Sorry, he said immediately. I know you just got off work. It's fine, I assured him, sinking onto my couch. What's going on? Cold feet about Westbrook? He sighed heavily. Hannah's asleep. I'm surrounded by boxes and I'm suddenly wondering if we're making a huge mistake. Greenwich has better schools, her parents' friends had connections for my career, the house there was newer. But farther from the hospital where she'll be working, especially when she's hugely pregnant or has a newborn, I pointed out. And much more expensive, I know. All the practical reasons make sense. But coming back to Westbrook feels like, I don't know, like moving backward somehow? Does that make sense? I understood better than he knew. It's not backward if your priorities have changed. You're not the same person who left for college determined to never look back. You're about to be a dad, Tyler. Being close to family makes sense now in a way it didn't before. I guess. He didn't sound convinced. But what if all the old patterns just resurface? Mom and Dad hovering, inserting themselves into our decisions about the baby? Ah, there it was, the real concern. They've changed, I said carefully. Not completely, maybe, but enough. They've learned to respect boundaries this past year. Mine, at least. That's different. You force their hand by basically cutting them off. Hannah and I can't do that, not with the baby coming. You don't have to cut them off to set boundaries, Tyler. Just be clear about your expectations. They might surprise you. He was quiet for a moment. You make it sound so simple. It's not, I admitted. But it's possible. Look at us. A year ago, would you have imagined calling me for advice in the middle of the night? He laughed softly. Fair point. I would have called Dad and gotten a lecture about commitment and following through. And now you're calling your formerly estranged sister who stands up to the family patriarchy? My badass nurse sister who doesn't take crap from anyone, he corrected. Thanks, Maddie. I needed the perspective check. Anytime. Now go to sleep. I'll see you Saturday with my moving muscles ready. After we hung up, I lay in bed reflecting on how much had changed in a year. The sister who had once been invisible to her family was now the one they turned to for guidance. The brother who had benefited from years of favoritism was now anxious about those same parents being too involved in his life. Life had a way of coming full circle sometimes. Saturday arrived with perfect moving weather, clear skies, mild temperature, gentle breeze. I arrived at Tyler and Hannah's new house at 8, armed with coffee and donuts to find my parents already there. Dad directing the movers with military precision while Mom organized boxes by room. Maddie, Hannah greeted me with a hug, her baby bump now prominently visible at 5 months. Thank God you're here. Your dad is driving the movers crazy, and I can't find the box with all my prenatal vitamins. On it, I promised, handing her a decaf. Why don't you sit for a bit? You look tired. First useful advice I've gotten all morning, she said gratefully, sinking onto a packing crate. Your mom keeps telling me to enjoy this special time, while your dad asks if we've started a college fund yet. I bit back a smile. Some things hadn't changed. I'll run interference. Drink your coffee. The morning passed in a blur of activity. Directing, movers, unpacking essentials, assembling furniture, mediating minor disagreements about where things should go. By mid-afternoon, the house was taking shape, furniture placed if not perfectly arranged, kitchen functional if not fully organized. I need a break, Tyler announced, collapsing onto the newly positioned couch. And food. Definitely food. I ordered pizzas, Lily called from the dining room where she was arranging Hannah's medical textbooks. Should be here in 20 minutes. Mom emerged from the nursery, paint swatches in hand. Hannah, dear, I've narrowed it down to these 3 shades of green. What do you think? Hannah shot me a desperate look. I stepped in smoothly. Maybe we should hold off on paint decisions until they've had a chance to settle in, Mom. They might want to live in the space a bit first? Mom looked ready to object, but Dad surprised me by backing me up. Maddie's right, Carol. Let the kids catch their breath. Rome wasn't built in a day. Mom hesitated, then nodded. You're right, of course. I'm getting ahead of myself. She tucked the paint swatches into her pocket. I'm just excited to have them close by again, especially with the baby coming. I caught Tyler's eye across the room, giving him a subtle nod. This was his moment to establish boundaries. He cleared his throat. We're excited too, Mom, but Hannah and I want to make this house our own, at our own pace. We appreciate all the help and ideas, but ultimately, we need to make the decisions. I held my breath, waiting for the explosion, the hurt feelings, the guilt trip. Instead, Mom nodded thoughtfully. Of course you do. I sometimes get carried away with my own vision of things. She smiled ruefully at me. As Maddie has helped me realize, just tell me when I'm overstepping, okay? The simple acceptance, free of drama or manipulation, caught Tyler by surprise. He blinked, then nodded. Thanks, Mom. We will. When the pizzas arrived, we gathered around boxes serving as makeshift tables, paper plates on our laps, exhausted but satisfied with the day's progress. The conversation flowed easily. Plans for the nursery, Hannah's new position, Dad's upcoming retirement, Lily's transfer to the state university. Oh, Mom said suddenly, turning to me. We haven't asked about your charge nurse interview. It's next week, right? I nearly choked on my pizza. Wednesday, yes, but it's not a big deal. Not a big deal? Dad scoffed. It's a promotion, Maddie. Only 18 months in, and they already see your leadership potential. That's something to be proud of. Thanks, I said, genuinely touched by his enthusiasm. But there are other candidates with more experience. None with your work ethic, Mom said firmly, or your compassion, or your ability to stay calm in a crisis, or your willingness to tell people when they're being idiots, Tyler added with a grin. Essential nursing skill from what I've observed. Their confidence in me, expressed so matter-of-factly, warmed something deep inside. Not because I needed their validation, I'd moved beyond that dependency, but because it reflected a new reality where my achievements were noticed, acknowledged, celebrated. After pizza, as the day wound down, I found myself alone in the kitchen with Dad, breaking down empty boxes for recycling. You've been quiet today, he observed, folding a cardboard box with mechanical precision. Everything. Okay? I nodded. Just tired. Long shift yesterday. And thinking about the interview, I'd guess. I smiled faintly. Maybe a little. You'll do great, Maddie. You always rise to challenges. I'm still nervous, I admitted. It's a big step. Dad set down the box he was breaking down and faced me fully. Can I tell you something? Something I should have told you years ago? I nodded, curious. Of all my children, you're the one I've worried about least. Not because I cared less, though I understand now how it seemed that way, but because you've always had this core of strength. Even as a little girl, you knew your own mind. He smiled sadly. I mistook that self-reliance for not needing me. I see now that was my failure, not yours. The simple acknowledgement touched me deeply. Thank you for saying that, Dad. I'm trying to do better at saying the important things out loud, he said. Another lesson from you. He hesitated, then added, I'm proud of the woman you've become, Mathelda. Not just your accomplishments, but who you are, your integrity, your courage to stand up for yourself, even when it was hard. Especially then. I swallowed the unexpected lump in my throat. That means a lot. A comfortable silence fell between us as we returned to breaking down boxes. Not all wounds were fully healed. Some might always carry scars, but the acute pain had faded, replaced by something approaching understanding. The interview the following Wednesday went better than I'd expected. The panel seemed impressed by my clinical experience, my ideas for improving unit communication, and my approach to mentoring new nurses. By Friday, I had the offer letter in hand, charge nurse medical surgical unit, with a salary increase that would let me renovate my bathroom with the walk-in shower I'd been coveting. I celebrated with dinner at my favorite restaurant, joined by Elena from nursing school, Vivian, and surprisingly, Lily, who insisted on buying the first round of drinks for her successful big sister. We toasted my promotion, Vivian's upcoming retirement after 30 years of service, Elena's acceptance to a nurse practitioner program, and Lily's decision to pursue physical therapy. To women who know their worth, Elena proposed, raising her glass, and aren't afraid to claim it, I added. Later that night, slightly tipsy and deeply content, I stood on my balcony looking out at the lights of Westbrook. Not the biggest city, not the most exciting place, but it had become home in a way it hadn't been before. My home, on my terms. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. Hannah says to stop by tomorrow if you're free. We need medical consultation on baby monitors. Also, Dad went overboard and built 2 rocking chairs. One has your name on it, literally. He carved it into the wood. I smiled, typing back. Tell Hannah Dr. Google is more up-to-date on baby monitors than nurses, but I'll come anyway. And I'll take the rocker, but only if it matches my decor. His response came quickly. It's Dad. Of course it doesn't match. Your decor. But it's solid oak and will outlast us all, so you're getting it whether you want it or not. Some things hadn't changed, but the important things had. My family still had its quirks, its challenges, its moments of frustration. But beneath it all, now ran a current of mutual respect that had been missing before. Respect for boundaries, for differences, for individual needs and choices. Sunday morning, I stopped by my parents' house to pick up the rocking chair before heading to Tyler and Hannah's. Dad led me to the garage where it sat, finished and gleaming, my name indeed carved into the headrest in his careful script. It's beautiful, Dad, I said honestly, running my hand over the smooth wood. Thank you. Every home needs a good rocking chair, he said gruffly, for reading, or thinking, or someday if you want, for rocking babies, or not. Your choice. The simple acknowledgement of my autonomy, my right to chart my own path, whether that included children or not, spoke volumes about how far we'd come. I'll treasure it, I promised. As we loaded the chair into my car, Mom appeared with a small gift bag. A little something to go with it, she said. For your promotion. Inside was a delicate throw blanket in exactly the shade of teal that dominated my living room decor. The tag revealed it was handmade by a local artisan I'd mentioned admiring months ago. You remembered? I said, surprised. I'm trying to pay better attention, she said simply. To what matters to each of you. To who you really are, not who I imagined you to be. It wasn't a perfect resolution. Life rarely offered those. There would still be moments of misunderstanding, old patterns that needed to be recognized and redirected. But as I drove away, rocking chair secured in my trunk, blanket on the passenger seat beside me, I felt a sense of peace that had once seemed impossible. The graduation they'd forgotten had become a turning point. Painful, yes, but ultimately transformative. It had forced long overdue conversations, catalyzed necessary changes, and allowed me to step fully into myself. Not as the forgotten middle child, the reliable one, the one who always accommodated everyone else, but as Mathelda, Taylor, nurse, homeowner, sister, daughter, friend. A woman who knew her worth and wasn't afraid to claim it, and that, in the end, was worth more than any ceremony they could have attended. 5 years later, Auntie Maddie. Watch me. 4-year-old Emma launched herself from the bottom step of my parents' porch, her dark curls flying as she executed what she considered a spectacular jump. Amazing! I applauded from my spot at the picnic table. Olympic-level jumping right there! Emma beamed, then raced off to find her 2-year-old brother, Liam, who was toddling after my father near the garden. She's got Tyler's confidence and Hannah's grace, Mom observed, setting down a bowl of potato salad. And absolutely none of either of their caution. I laughed. That's what makes her Emma. The backyard of my childhood home was transformed for the annual Taylor family 4th of July barbecue. Red, white, and blue streamers hung from trees, lawn games dotted the grass, and the scent of Dad's famous ribs wafted from the grill where he stood in his kiss the cook apron, giving Liam a very serious explanation of proper barbecue technique. "Sorry. We're late," Lily called, coming through the gate with her boyfriend Marcus. "Emergency at the clinic ran long." "Patient or paperwork?" I asked, knowing all too well how both could derail the best-laid plans. "Paperwork," Lily groaned. "The joys of private practice physical therapy? Worth it, though." She deposited a platter of deviled eggs on the table. "Where's the newest member of the family?" "Tyler and Hannah just put Charlotte down for a nap." "In Mom's room," I explained. 3 months old and already has her parents wrapped around her tiny finger. "Like her big sister and brother," Mom added with a smile. "Those children are wonderfully spoiled." "Loved," I corrected automatically. "There's a difference." Mom nodded, the gentle correction taken as intended. "Loved," she agreed. "By all of us." The past 5 years had brought changes I could never have imagined that day I stood alone at my graduation. Tyler and Hannah now had 3 beautiful children and a house just 10 minutes from my condo. Lily had finished her physical therapy degree and opened a small practice with 2 partners, specializing in pediatric care. And I had advanced from charge nurse to nursing manager of the medical surgical unit, overseeing a team of 30 nurses while still maintaining some direct patient care. My parents had changed too. Dad's retirement had softened his edges, giving him time to pursue woodworking and grandchildren spoiling in equal measure. Mom had surprised everyone by going back to school for a master's in education, now consulting, part-time with local schools on curriculum development. "Maddie, can you grab the extra ice from the freezer in the garage?" Mom asked, arranging cups for the lemonade. "Tyler just texted that he's bringing Vivian and her husband from your hospital." I smiled at the easy way my former mentor had been incorporated into our family gatherings over the years. Retired now, Vivian still kept in touch, becoming something of an honorary grandmother to Emma, who was fascinated by her stories of fixing people when they're broken. In the garage, I paused to look at the workbench where Dad now crafted everything from birdhouses to baby cribs. His latest project sat, half-finished, a toy chest for Charlotte, the wood carefully sanded, waiting for the final touches. Beside it hung a framed photograph I'd never noticed before. Me in my graduation cap and gown, alone but smiling, the picture obviously taken from a distance. I recognized the parking lot of the auditorium in the background. Found that when we were cleaning out the attic last month, Dad's voice came from behind me. "Lily took it with her phone. She was running late that day, saw you standing there after the ceremony. She didn't know we weren't there yet." I touched the frame gently. "I didn't know this existed." "I almost didn't frame it," Dad admitted. "It's a reminder of one of my greatest failures as a father." But then I thought, it's also a reminder of your strength, and how far we've all come since then. The moment could have been awkward, painful, even reopening old wounds. But time and honest communication had done their healing work. What had once been raw and agonizing was now just a scar, visible but no longer painful to the touch. It was a turning point, I acknowledged. For all of us. Dad nodded, picking up the bag of ice I'd come for. Not one I'd recommend, but sometimes the hardest lessons are the most important ones. We returned to the backyard where the gathering had grown. Tyler was setting up a badminton net with Marcus, while Hannah sat in the shade nursing baby Charlotte. Vivian and her husband chatted with Mom near the food table, and Lily was on the grass with Emma, demonstrating stretches that the little girl mimicked with exaggerated movements. "There she is," Tyler called when he spotted me. "The newest board-certified nursing administrator in the state. When do we start calling you Director Taylor?" I rolled my eyes. "The promotion isn't official until next month, and nobody calls me that except maybe in my dreams." "In your nightmares, more likely," Vivian chimed in. "You never were one for titles." This was true. My recent certification and upcoming promotion to Director of Medical Services had been pursued not for the prestige, but for the increased ability to influence patient care standards and mentor younger nurses. Uncle Tyler said you're going to be the boss of the whole hospital, Emma announced, abandoning her stretches to run to me. I scooped her up. Not quite the whole hospital, bug, just my department. That's still a pretty big deal, Lily said, joining us. Marcus, did you know my sister's kind of a healthcare badass? Language, Mom called automatically from across the yard. Healthcare hero, Lily amended with a wink. Marcus grinned. I've heard a few stories, impressive stuff. The afternoon unfolded in lazy summer perfection. We ate Dad's ribs and Mom's potato salad, played lawn games with varying degrees of coordination, and cooed over baby Charlotte when she woke from her nap. As the sun began to set, Tyler cleared his throat, claiming everyone's attention. Hannah and I have an announcement, he said, his arm around his wife's waist as she held their youngest child. We've been thinking about this for a while, and we've decided we're going to start a foundation. Murmurs of interest rippled through. The group? The Taylor Family Scholarship, Hannah explained, for students pursuing nursing or medical careers who don't have family financial support. Full tuition and expenses for one student each year. All eyes turned to me, and I felt a flush of emotion rise to my cheeks. Maddie's story inspired us, Tyler continued. Her determination to make it through nursing school despite limited support. We want to make that path easier for others. We've already secured initial funding, Hannah added. And we'd like you to be on the selection committee, Maddie. Your perspective would be invaluable. I was speechless, a rare condition for me these days. The gesture represented something profound, not just acknowledgement of my struggle, but a commitment to ensuring others wouldn't have to fight so hard for their dreams. I'd be honored, I managed finally. To the Taylor Family Scholarship, Dad raised his glass, and to the woman who inspired it. As everyone toasted, Mom squeezed my hand. You've changed this family for the better, Maddie, she whispered. All because you finally stood up for yourself. Later, as twilight deepened and the first stars appeared, I sat on the porch swing with Emma asleep against my side. The backyard glowed with strings of lights, conversations humming in small groups across the lawn. My family, expanded now beyond blood to include friends, colleagues, partners, gathered in easy companionship. Room for one more? Tyler asked, approaching with 2 glasses of wine. I shifted Emma slightly, making space. Always. He handed me a glass and settled on the swing. She's out cold. All that jumping finally caught up with her. She's perfect, I said, stroking my niece's curls. They all are. Tyler nodded, looking out at our gathered family. Remember when we could barely be in the same room without tension? When every conversation felt like navigating a minefield? Vividly, I replied, though it feels like another lifetime now. Because of you, he said simply. Your courage changed everything, Maddie, made us all face truths we'd been ignoring for years. I shook my head. I just reached my breaking point. Anyone would have eventually. But not everyone would have handled it with such grace, he countered. You didn't just lash out in anger. You set boundaries, demanded respect, and then gave us all a chance to do better. He raised his glass slightly. To my sister, the foundation of this family in more ways than one. I clinked my glass against his, too moved for words. 5 years ago, standing alone at my graduation, I couldn't have imagined this moment. The road from there to here had been winding, sometimes steep, occasionally doubling back on itself. But each step, each difficult conversation, each boundary drawn and respected had led to this. Not perfect harmony, but authentic connection. A family redefined by honesty and mutual respect. Emma stirred against me, murmuring in her sleep. Across the yard, Hannah laughed at something Vivian said, while Dad showed Marcus his latest woodworking techniques. Mom and Lily sat with baby Charlotte deep in conversation about the little one's development. The scene before me wasn't what I'd dreamed of as a child, desperate for her family's attention. It was something better, something real. A family that had faced its flaws and committed to growth. People who had hurt each other, forgiven each other, and rebuilt something stronger in the aftermath. The forgotten graduation that had once felt like ultimate rejection had become the catalyst for the most important lessons of my life. That true love requires respect. That worth comes from within, not from others' validation. That standing up for yourself doesn't mean losing those you love, but rather creating the possibility for more authentic connection. 5 years later, surrounded by the family that had both wounded and healed me, I finally understood the most important truth of all. Sometimes the greatest gifts come disguised as our deepest disappointments. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.